I've recently been reading The Power of Prayer by Samuel Prime. It's about a revival that took place in the 1800s. It started out in New York and was very much characterized by prayer meetings that would spring up and revival would follow. But the part that I'm going to read isn't particularly about the revival itself. It spoke to me more because of, in light of the church has been encouraging us to set aside time to pray, and also the EMW Week of Prayer that has happened recently. And yet sometimes we may pray and become discouraged because we don't seem to see any answers to prayer, and we start to maybe think, what's the point? And the chapter starts out as one after another prayed or offered a word of exhortation. The Reverend Mr. Smuller indulged in a strain of thought so encouraging to parental help and prayer that I asked him to permit me to use his remarks in this connection. In no other aspect do we contemplate this revival with more satisfaction than in the evidence it affords that God will answer prayer. We know that there is no prayer more ardent, importunate, and persevering than that which goes up from yearning yet believing hearts of pious parents. And although he mentions pious parents, actually I think it's relevant to all of us. And he goes on to say, what has become of all the prayers that have been offered to God for the salvation of this world? What has become of them? Why, all that have been offered in faith have been received in heaven and accepted in the name of the great intercessor. Some of them have been already answered, and many of them wait only the times and seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. But not one of them is lost, or shall remain unanswered. The prayers of Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses, and Elias, and David, and the prophets, and apostles and martyrs, and the godly of all ages, all that vast column of prayer that has travelled along down the pathway of the covenant, from the first accepted sacrifice at the gates of the lost Eden, all are in heaven, and all will be answered. The prayers of your ancestors, the pious and covenant-keeping Huguenots, Hollanders, Scotch-Irish, and Puritans, the pioneers of the American church, the strong crying and tears that they offered to God for their descendants and for their country, are all in heaven, and will all be answered. Your prayers, dear child of God, are not all answered, but they are accepted, if offered in faith, in the name of Christ, and for the blessings of the covenant, and shall be answered. Some of them, perhaps, during your lifetime on earth, and all of them certainly during your lifetime in heaven. Turn for a moment to the visions of the beloved disciple in the isle that is called Patmos. Revelation 5 verse 8 says, And when he, the Lamb, had taken the book, the 4 beasts and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odours, which are the prayers of the saints. The prayers of the saints, something so very precious that is fragrance even in heaven. Commentators will tell you that the word rendered beasts means living ones, and that they are the symbols of the divine government or providence. The face of a lion, an ox, a man, and a flying eagle will then bring before you the dominion, the stability, the intelligence, and celerity of the divine providence, and your prayers are committed to the keeping of this government, thus symbolized. The divine providence holds the golden censers containing the accepted but unanswered prayers of the saints, and surely we may, with confidence and cheerfulness, commit our prayers to such keeping. But this is not the whole of the celestial vision with regard to the prayers of the saints. Turn to Revelation 8, verses 3 to 5, which says, And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given much incense, that he should offer it at it, with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God, out of the angel's hands. And the angel took the censer, and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth. And there were voices, and thunderings, and lightnings, and an earthquake. The fragrance belongs not originally to the prayers, but it was given to the angel to add to the prayers of all the saints. That sacred and heavenly perfume is the merit of the high priest and the advocate. The angel is not the intercessor, but the angelic minister, charged to carry the answers to our prayers. We are let somewhat into the secret of this arrangement in the history of the prophet Daniel. 9 verse 23 says, "At the beginning of thy supplication, the commandment came forth, and I, Gabriel, mentioned in the previous verse, am come to show thee." The Lord must not wait until Daniel had finished his prayer before he could determine the nature or the extent of his request. Nay, at the beginning of thy supplication, the commandment came forth. Your prayers are heard, accepted, and the commandment issued for their answer, and yet much time may elapse before the answer is received. In Daniel 9, we have an account of the prophet's mourning and fasting and prayer for 3 full weeks. And after the 21 days of bitterness and prayer, behold, a hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright, for unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, not from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. This scene is laid between heaven and earth, the territories traversed by our prayers and the returning answers. What conflicts occur in this field between the ministering angels, who are charged with the answers to our prayers, and the fallen spirits, who hate God and oppose our holiness and his cause on the earth, we know not. In this instance, in the history of Daniel, the patron demon of Persia opposed the angel of God 21 days, and would, no doubt, from his intense hatred of God and his people, have continued his opposition for an indefinite period, had not the Almighty commanded the archangel Michael to go to the relief of the faithful messenger. Aye, while Daniel held on in prayer, not only would Michael, but all the glittering host that wait the bidding of their eternal King, have come forth to ministering to the praying saint. Oh, it is precious to know that all the bright, benevolent, and holy ones around the throne on high are employed about the affairs of the saints on earth. Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those that shall be heirs of salvation? But if, in the case of Daniel, there was required a delay of 21 days, so in the case of our prayers for ourselves, our children, and the world, the high proprieties of the divine government may demand a delay of not only 21 days, but of 21 years, or 21 centuries, for that matter. Yet are we assured that the prayer of faith offered in the name of the mighty advocate for the blessings of the covenant is heard, accepted, and the commandment for its answer sent forth, while the faith of the praying saints and the efforts of the ministering angel await only the times and the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. In the meantime, those prayers, as sweet perfumes, are kept in the vials and censers of the holy ones in heaven, and at the appropriate times, the fires of their divine rectitude and love from the golden altar will be kindled upon them, and the angel will cast them upon the earth. And then shall follow those great revivals, those mighty moral and spiritual revolutions, fitly symbolized by voices, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. What are our revivals now, but a few of those fragrant drops poured out upon the earth? But the time cometh, as the church approaches the culminating period of this dispensation, when God will hasten his work, and the thousands and millions of earth, in answer to the prayers of all the saints, shall flock to the cross, and go forth for ages the washed, redeemed, and joyous millennial church on earth. Still the cry is, O Lord, how long?